What's going on, my good people? Mike Hidalgo here. Thank you for joining us on another FCP Euro DIY. Today, we're going to be working on a 2016 Porsche Panamera GTS. Today, on the GTS 970 behind me, we're going to be covering how to replace the engine air filters. This is going to be specific to just the GTS models, as the filters are located in the wheel wells. Every other Panamera model is going to have a filter in the front bumper, which we will cover in another video. Today in front of me, we have the Mala kit, which includes both of the filters needed for this DIY. Typically, we recommend you replace these every 15 to 30,000 miles. On a more aggressive interval, you're looking at 10,000 miles. The car behind us has about 60,000 miles. We're not quite sure of his service history, so we're going to go ahead and replace these anyways and show you how to tackle that. But before we get started on this DIY, let's take a look at some of the tools you're going to need for this job. For this DIY, you're going to need a few basic tools, the most important being a 10mm socket, a T25, an E10, and a 19mm socket to get your lug bolts off. We're going to use an impact gun today to remove those. If you don't have that, a breaker bar will replace this. You need a torque wrench. You can torque your wheel lug bolts back down. And today we're going to use a 1/4" ratchet. You may see me pair it up with a couple extensions and or adapters for these sockets, but otherwise any ratchet size you want to use will work just fine. Now we know what tools we're going to be needing for this DIY. Let's go ahead and get started on this job. All right, inside the Panamera, we're going to set the vehicle to jack mode or lift mode, since the car is equipped with air suspension. So before we raise a tire, we got to make sure the car doesn't go haywire on us. So just going to turn the vehicle on. Then over on the center console, we have our row of buttons. The second one up from the bottom has a picture of the vehicle with an arrow up and an arrow down. We're going to hold that for a few seconds until we see a message on our right-hand display up here saying that the function has been turned off, and then we can safely jack up the vehicle. So we're going to hold our button down for a few seconds, and we're going to go ahead and wait for that message to appear. Level control off. That's exactly what we want to see. Now with that, the car is safe to jack up. So let's head back to the front and get ready to do that now. All right, my good people, we have the car up in the air today. However, this is a job you can easily do in the driveway with a floor jack. However, the lift makes our life a little bit easier. We have 5 19mm lug bolts to remove. For those of you working at home without an impact gun, I recommend you break these free with your breaker bar with the wheel still on the ground first, so you're not fighting the car or putting any weird stress on the drive line. Once you have those loose, then you can lift up the vehicle and remove them the rest of the way. We're going to use an impactor. We're just going to zap them out to get started. And I will say now the process is going to be identical on both the driver and passenger side. So our focus will be on the passenger side, but we will show you a quick time lapse of the same process on the driver's side. Be mindful your wheel will be ready to drop once you take off that last lug bolt. Keep some pressure on it. Have a second set of hands if you need it. And then you can pull it off. All right, we're going to start with the plastic 10mm nut on the fender liner. This is over on the inboard side of the liner. Just using a 10mm on our 1/4" ratchet here to get that off. Then moving along, we have 3 more T25s up along the top ridge here to remove. And then 1 more on the inside of the bumper. We'll start with the top 3 first. Again, this is a total of 9 T25s and 1 10mm plastic nut. And we have 1 on the inside of the bumper here. And then once we get this one taken care of, we have 5 more underneath that we're going to remove. Underneath the vehicle, we have 3 T25s along the front lip of the bumper, and we have 2 on the splash shield. So we'll start with getting these off, and then the portion of our fender liner will come off. The 2 T25s on the splash shield are a little bit different than the ones on the rest of the liner. They have a bigger washer, smaller head. So just keep that in mind when you reassemble everything. You're installing the big washered T25s back on the splash shield. Now we're simply going to go ahead and pull this liner off and away. Keep in mind sometimes debris can get stuck in here, so keep your eyes free and clear. Just gotta get over the stud for the 10mm plastic nut. Here we go. Next, we're going to remove this lower plastic panel so that we have access to the hardware that holds the lid on for our air filters. We have a plastic tab, 1 on either side, It simply pops open. You lift it and push the tab back, and then this just comes off. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the 3 E10s. Now we're going to go ahead and hold the cover up while we remove the last one. We can lower that. And here is our air filter. Now we're going to go ahead and note the location of the 2 tabs on our air filter. We're going to go ahead and pull it out. This simply just pulls straight down. And we can just take our new one, which just press fits onto the opening on the box there. And boom. Now we're going to reinstall our base plate once more. Our filter is up and secure. The base plate itself has a couple tabs that kind of help everything stay in place. You don't have to really worry about it falling down inside the box here. We're just going to get one started by hand. Again, these are E10s, 3 of them. And we're just going to snug these up as they are small aluminum bolts going into a small aluminum housing. But if you wanted to torque them down, 8 Newton meters is going to be your number. Now we're just going to snug them up by hand with the old calibrated wrist. And with that installed, we can reinstall our plastic panel. Now we're going to reinstall our wheel liner once more. We're going to line it up at the bottom here first, and then we'll work our way up top. All right, with everything roughly in place, we're going to start the 5 T25s down here at the bottom. We got 3 on the lip of the bumper. Then we have the 2 T25s with the bigger washers. Those go on the splash shield. All right, back up inside the wheel fender, or inside of the wheel well, you want to make sure your fender liner, the piece that we dropped, is tucked behind the portion that was left behind. The only really thing that you want to make sure also is that the stud for the 10mm plastic nut is going through both of the pieces. So with that, we'll start with that nut first. These just need to be snug on. They are plastic, so they don't need to be incredibly tight. And with that, we are left with 4 T25s. We're just going to work our way around installing them. These liners are pretty flexible, so you can pretty much get them started. You don't really have to worry about them not being perfectly lined up. All right, now we have that all situated. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall our wheel once more. Sure, our bolt holes are lined up as best as possible. You always want to start your lug bolts by hand. And from there, we're simply going to snug all of the lug bolts down in a crisscross pattern. No more than maybe 30 Newton meters of force, really. It's just to set the wheel flat against the hub. And then we'll lower it down and torque them down properly. All right, we're just going to use the impact to snug them up. Now we're going to go ahead and torque these down to 160 Newton meters. So we're going to go in a crisscross pattern and snug them up. All right, my good people. And with that, that is going to conclude this DIY for today. Overall, a really straightforward job on the GTS models. Again, we will be doing the infamous behind the bumper one on the other 970s once we come across one. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave them in the comment section below. If there's a specific job you want to see us do on this chassis, you know where to put it. And if you like this DIY and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.